Have you ever felt like there's a part of you that keeps sabotaging everything you try to build? That no matter how much progress you make, something from within always finds a way to pull you back? What if I told you, this inner enemy isn't a flaw, it's a message? According to Carl Jung, the battle you're fighting isn't just psychological, it's spiritual, and it holds the key to your deepest transformation. If this resonates with you, make sure you subscribe to Inina Mirror, leave a like, share this with someone who needs it, and let your thoughts echo in the comments. What you're about to hear might shift the way you understand yourself forever. You work hard, stay disciplined, push yourself past exhaustion, and still, somehow, you keep tripping over the same patterns. You sabotage relationships just when they're about to deepen. You quit just before success arrives. You numb yourself when you most need clarity. It's like there's an invisible hand inside you, pulling the strings. But what if that hand is yours? Carl Jung believed that within every person there is a war not against the world but against oneself, a war between who we think we are and who we truly are. He called this conflict the tension between the ego and the shadow. The ego is the mask we wear to navigate life. It's how we want others to see us and strong, capable, in control. But the shadow is everything we've rejected, denied, or buried. Our fears, our anger, our envy, our weaknesses, and, strangely, also our greatest potential. Jung warned that whatever we do not bring to consciousness will come back to us as fate. In other words, if you ignore the parts of yourself you don't like, they won't disappear. They'll show up in your choices, in your patterns, in your pain. Think about that. Every time you say, "I don't know why I did that," or "I always mess this up," it might not be random. It might be your shadow, and unloved and unseen, demanding your attention in the only language it knows, sabotage. But here's the twist. The shadow isn't evil. It's not your enemy. It's you, just the parts of you that have been cast out, hidden behind the polished mask of who you think you should be. Maybe you grew up being told to be nice, so now you repress your anger. Maybe you were praised for being the smart one, so now you hide your confusion. Maybe you were punished for being vulnerable, so now you armor yourself with indifference. Whatever you suppress, you empower in silence, and this is where it gets dangerous. Because the more you try to control yourself without understanding yourself, the more divided you become. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's the real reason. You might feel like your own worst enemy, because you're not listening to what your inner world is trying to tell you. The voice that says you're not good enough? It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be healed. It wants you to stop pretending that you're invincible and admit that you're scared, that you're human, that you're carrying wounds. Jung didn't believe in eliminating the shadow. He believed in integrating it, facing it, talking to it, listening to the part of you that you've spent your life avoiding, because only by doing that can you become whole. And make no mistake, wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is honesty. It's radical self-acceptance. It's saying, yes, I have flaws. Yes, I have darkness. But that doesn't make me unworthy. That makes me real. Think about this. What if the real enemy is not your darkness, but your refusal to face it? What if your greatest breakthroughs are buried beneath the very parts of yourself you're most afraid to confront? Most people run from the shadow, but those who find the courage to turn around and face it discover who they really are. Not just the image, not just the mask, but the soul. In the next part, we'll explore how the shadow forms and why. The very things you try hardest to suppress may hold the exact energy you need to heal, grow, and transform your life. Why do we suppress parts of ourselves in the first place? Why do we lock away our emotions, instincts, and impulses as if they were enemies to be silenced? Carl Jung believed the shadow is born the moment a child begins to navigate the expectations of the world. As children, we quickly learn what gets us love and what gets us rejection. If crying makes your parents uncomfortable, you learn to smile through pain. If speaking up gets you punished, you learn to stay silent. If showing anger makes you bad, you learn to hide it beneath forced politeness. In order to survive, we carve away parts of ourselves. This is the tragedy of adaptation. You become what others want but lose sight of who you are. Jung saw this as a necessary stage of development. We need structure, we need guidance, but the danger arises when the mask becomes permanent, when we confuse the role with the soul, when we believe the lie that only the acceptable, pleasant, productive parts of ourselves deserve to exist. But the psyche doesn't forget what you bury. The feelings you suppress don't dissolve, they grow stronger in silence, and the longer you ignore them, the more distorted they become. This is how self-sabotage is born. You reject your anger, and it leaks out as passive aggression. You deny your fear, and it shows up as procrastination. You suppress your grief, and it hardens into numbness. What you resist persists. Jung saw the shadow as a reservoir of untapped energy. It's chaotic, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also vital, because within that darkness lies your power, the raw, unfiltered version of you. And if you're brave enough to face it, you unlock a deeper form of strength, one that doesn't come from pretending to be perfect, but from embracing your contradictions. Consider this. Maybe you're not lazy, you're terrified. Maybe you're not unmotivated. You're angry at being forced into a life that doesn't feel true to you. Maybe you're not broken, you're just tired of being someone you're not. What if your worst behaviors aren't failures, but messages, signals, symptoms of a deeper truth waiting to be heard? You see, most people think change starts with willpower, but Jung believed transformation begins with awareness, self-knowledge, the willingness to look inward, not just at your strengths, but at your shadows. To sit with discomfort, to ask hard questions, to meet the parts of yourself you were taught to hate. This is not an easy path. It's not clean or linear. It's messy, emotional, often painful, but it's the only path to real freedom. Because as long as you're fighting yourself, you can't truly move forward. You're stuck in a loop, blaming, shaming, avoiding, thinking you're weak, when in fact, you're just split. The goal isn't to become flawless, it's to become integrated, to allow all parts of you, the bold and the broken, the strong and the scared, to sit at the same table, to let your shadow speak, not so it can take over, but so it can stop screaming. As Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but also the most liberating. When you begin this inner work, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a problem to fix and start seeing yourself as a mystery to explore. You stop judging every flaw and start asking, what is this part of me trying to teach me? In the next part, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore how the shadow affects your relationships, your success, and even your sense of identity, and why the patterns that keep repeating in your life are not accidents, but invitations. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same kinds of people, the same toxic dynamics, the same emotional roller coasters, over and over again? Carl Jung had a radical explanation for this. What you do not make conscious will continue to manifest in your life as fate. In other words, what you reject internally, you meet externally. The people you attract are mirrors. They reflect the parts of you that you've disowned. If you've buried your anger, you'll find yourself drawn to people who are aggressive. If you've suppressed your need for boundaries, you'll attract those who constantly cross them. If you've rejected your own power, you'll cling to those who dominate you. This is the psyche's way of forcing you to grow. Life keeps handing you lessons until you learn them, not out of cruelty, but necessity. Because until you face what's within, you'll keep playing the same role in different scenes. The faces will change, the pain will not. Jung believed that the unconscious isn't just a storage unit of forgotten thoughts. It's a living force. It influences your choices, shapes your desires, and guides your fears. And the shadow, that hidden self, often drives your life from the back seat, especially when you pretend it doesn't exist. Think about the last time you overreacted, not just got upset, but exploded. That wasn't logic. That wasn't your conscious mind. That was a part of you, maybe a wounded child, maybe repressed shame, breaking through the mask. That was the shadow making itself known. And here's the key. The shadow isn't evil, it's misdirected energy. When you deny it, it turns destructive. But when you integrate it, it becomes your ally. That person who's always sabotaging your goals, that's the part of you that's scared of success. Scared of being seen, scared of not being enough. That voice that whispers you'll never be loved. That's not truth. That's an echo of a wound, a moment, maybe long ago, when love was withheld or made conditional. Until you confront that voice, it controls you. Until you bring it into the light, it will sabotage your relationships, your confidence, your peace. Jung taught that the path to wholeness is not through perfection, but through confrontation. Inner confrontation. The willingness to hold your pain, not escape it. The courage to question your patterns, not just your outcomes. This is where most people stop. It's easier to blame circumstances, to point fingers at others, to think they're the problem. But every difficult relationship is an opportunity to learn something about yourself. The question is, are you brave enough to ask, what part of me is being triggered here? What is this reaction revealing about my inner world? Because once you begin that inquiry, the game changes. You're no longer a victim of your emotions. You're a student of your psyche. And the deeper you go, the more you realize your so-called enemy within was never your enemy at all. It was your unacknowledged self, the parts that have been crying out for your attention, not your rejection. In the final part, we will explore how you can begin to integrate your shadow, step by step. You'll learn what Jung meant by individuation and how it offers not just healing but transformation. The version of you that you were always meant to become is not found by escaping your darkness, but by walking straight into it, with eyes wide open. So how do you stop being your own worst enemy? According to Jung, the answer lies in a process he called individuation, the journey of integrating all the parts of yourself into a unified whole. It is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. It starts with awareness. Begin noticing your patterns without judgment. Ask yourself, why do I keep ending up in these situations? What belief am I carrying that keeps attracting this pain? What am I trying to protect myself from? This isn't about blame, it's about responsibility, the kind that liberates rather than condemns. The moment you take ownership of your inner world, you stop being a slave to it. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You cannot heal what you will not face. You cannot change what you will not name. Shadow work is not a trend, it's a necessity. It means sitting with your jealousy, your insecurity, your rage, and asking, where did this come from? Whose voice is this really? And is it still true? The most dangerous voice in your life is not the one coming from others. It's the one inside you that you mistake for truth. Healing begins when you realize you don't have to believe every thought you think. Your inner critic, your self-doubt, your fear, and these are not facts. They are signals. And if you trace them back to their source, you'll find wounds, memories, forgotten needs. And here's the beauty. The same psyche that carries your pain also carries your potential. Within your shadow lies your creativity, your intuition, your courage. Integrating your darkness doesn't weaken you, it completes you. You begin to reclaim your power. You stop being a puppet of unconscious forces and start becoming the author of your own story. People think growth is about becoming someone new, but real growth, the kind Jung pointed to, is about remembering who you were before the world told you to be someone else. Before shame distorted your expression, before fear shrank your voice. It is not self-improvement, it is self-return, and it takes radical honesty, radical compassion, not just for others, but for yourself, especially the parts you've spent years trying to hide. There's a reason Jung didn't romanticize this path. He called it the most difficult of all, because it requires facing truths most people spend their lives avoiding. But he also believed it was the only path to true freedom. You are not broken. You are not your trauma. You are not your worst thoughts. You are the one who can witness all of it, hold it and choose differently. In this very moment, the war within you, the self-sabotage, the patterns, the pain, it's not your enemy. It's your signal, an invitation, a door. The question is, will you open it? Because beyond it lies a life not dictated by fear but by awareness. A life where your choices are no longer echoes of wounds but expressions of truth. A life where you stop running from yourself and finally come home. So if you've ever wondered why you keep standing in your own way, if you've ever felt like your worst enemy is in the mirror, know this: you're not alone. And you're not doomed. You're just at the threshold of a deeper truth, one that can change everything. And it starts not by running from the darkness, but by turning to face it.